All right, guys, we are back with another video in the Rising Storm 2 SDK tutorial series. Today, we're going to quickly cover how to add helicopters to your map. Hueys, Loach, Cobra, they all work pretty much the same way, and this is how you would add a helicopter if you wanted to be able to have the Americans fly around in helicopters on your map. The main things we would need for a helicopter, there are 3 things you need to do, and we'll cover all of them. They're all fairly easy and very similar to some of the other stuff we've done. But the first thing we're going to need is a RO player start volume pilots, and that's under the here we go right here. RO volume player start group pilot. So this is a spawn for pilots only. If you remember when we put down infantry, we're using the RO player start group. Here, this one's special. It's for pilots. So a couple ways you can do this. You could copy an existing player start group and convert it to a pilot. I'm just going to make a fresh one. So these don't need to be real big because normally you wouldn't have more than a handful of pilots spawning into any map anyways. But I'm going to set this up. Maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. Let's make it 1,000 each way, just so we have no issues with it being too small. We've got it down there. Let me grab it. Here I'm in my geometry mode, so I can resize pretty easily. But as you can see, I've already placed down a little bit of a helipad there where the helicopter will be. And normally, if you played any of the vanilla maps, the supremacy maps, or Hill 937, the pilots spawn fairly close to helicopters. You don't want to have them run 100 meters to the chopper or something like that. But you set this up wherever you want it. With our standard builder brush, we're going to come down here to our pilot spawn, we'll call it for short. And there it is. So as you can see, it's set up here. Got the group pilot. If you recall, we need to enable this in Kismet like we do any other spawn. So typically, I like to disable all my spawns in the beginning, which you have probably seen if you've watched any of the other videos. And many times the pilot spawns don't move. They're the same spot the whole map. So we disable it, and then I enable it here in the beginning, and that is it. So this can be attached to the same player start group node here as the rest of our spawn. So the pilot spawn special, but the thing that enables it is not. So not a big deal there. We'll attach that. That way it will kick on as soon as the map launches and our pilots can spawn. Now what we also need to place, if you recall in our other spawn volume, we need these RO player starts. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time is just copy a few. So I'm going to select them, hit Control C, and then I'm going to come over here to where I've set up this spawn. I've got all sorts of little volumes poking around here, so I know it's hard to see, but and I'm just going to drop them down right here. So if you recall the little shortcut, if I drop them up above the ground and tap the End key, it'll snap them right down to the grid. And as you can see, they're all right here. So I've got my player starts inside my enabled player spawn. The next key thing you'll need is to make sure you have a pilot role on your map. So we can add our pilot roles by going up to View, World Properties, and the only faction that currently has access to pilot roles is the South team, which is the team with the Americans on it. And the default roles that automatically appear when you create a new map do not include the pilots, so you will need to add these. You can do that by clicking the plus sign up here. We'll get this blank role info here. I can go down to role info class, and I'm going to add a Huey, so I'm going to choose the transport pilot. If I wanted to add a Loach or a Cobra, I would just choose this role, Southern pilot. But for this one, I'm going to do a transport pilot. Just need one on this map, it's a small map, and just save it as that is. So the last step to get the helicopters working on your map is to actually add the aircraft vehicle factory, which we can find up here in the actor classes, and we can go down to our navigation point, open that menu up and find the RO vehicle factories. RO Transport Vehicle Factory, and this is where we'd pick our different helicopters. You have your Cobra, your Loach, and then here is where we want the Huey. I'm going to select it in the content browser there under the Actor tab. I'm going to right-click where I want it, add UH1 Vehicle Factory here. A good idea, just like the player starts, I like to lift that up and tap the end key to snap it down. If you have it poking through or something like that, you'll have issues. If you have anything around here that could possibly collide, a tree or something like that, you'll likely have some issues and the vehicle won't be able to spawn, and you'll be wondering why it doesn't appear there when you test it. But typically you want to make sure nothing is around there that's going to possibly touch anything to prevent it from spawning. So now we've placed the factory, and much like the vehicle factories in Red Orchestra 2, where you actually have to connect them to a spawn. So we need to connect this helicopter to this spawn. And the easiest way to do that, I can go up to my Scene tab. I can find the vehicle factory in the Scene tab, which is right here. There's only one. I'm going to click on the pilot spawn here. I'm going to hit F4 to bring up its properties. And if you search, you can go down and look, or the easiest thing I like to do is just type in something here, vehicle, linked vehicle factories. This is where we would associate this particular vehicle factory that we have right here to this spawn. So now that I have it selected here in my Scene tab, I'm going to just simply click this arrow here, it plugs it in. Now this helicopter is forever tied to this spawn. And for most maps, like I said, the helicopter spawn isn't going to change. So you're going to associate this vehicle to that spawn, and it's going to stay that way the whole map. You really won't have to mess with it anymore. All right, guys, and one other small thing to note when dealing with like the out-of-bounds areas on the maps. If you've noticed, the helicopters have a lot more freedom as far as out of bounds than like an infantry soldier would. And you still use the same out of bounds volume for both infantry and helicopters. The only difference in the settings you'll see for the map boundaries, you have this ignore airborne boolean. So if I had an area where I didn't want infantry to go, but it'd be fine for the helicopters to fly a little bit further outside the bounds of the map, I would click that, and that would make the area safe for helicopters to fly. If you check some of the vanilla maps, Song B is a good example I've been using, but they have separate out-of-bounds volumes for helicopters than they do for the infantry, along with an extended kill time for the helicopters. I believe it's 20 seconds, so it gives you a little bit of time. You fly outside the volume, sometimes it takes a minute to maneuver back into the world. So you can check the settings on the vanilla maps. If you have any questions, the damage type is the same, though, for both. And it will kill the helicopters eventually, but it allows you to kind of adjust where the helicopters can go on your map. All right, we'll choose the American team. As you can see, our transport pilot role did appear. We'll go ahead and join in. And now we've spawned in as the pilot, and as I hoped, the helicopter spawned in as well. So we can run over here, make sure we can hop in it. The lighting has not been built on this, so obviously things are going to look a little goofy, but you can fly around in Pi just as if you were flying around in the actual game. If you wanted to go ahead and cook this and test it in game, you could too. So that covers pretty much the basics on how to spawn in to the helicopter, set it up, set up your vehicle factories, and if you like the helicopter pads that appear in game, such as on like Song B maps like that, you can always go in. That's what I did. I just copied their helicopter pad. It's kind of nice to do. You could build your own as well. But so we've covered all the characteristics for spawning in, and it works the same way for the other two helicopters as well. So it's just the same settings. The only difference is you're using a different vehicle factory, and then of course a different role. So if you have any questions, as always, feel free to chime in, and I'll be happy to answer any. But I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.